There are moments when the ocean whispers warnings we choose to ignore, and the consequences can be devastating. I think of Anthony White, just 22, a marine biology student with a passion for surfing, who lost his life in 2014. He ignored the signs, paddled out to a remote spot near a seal rookery, and a great white shark was waiting. His story is one of those chilling reminders of the power and the indifference of the natural world. The summer of 2014 had brought perfect weather to Surf Beach, California. The sun painted golden patterns on the glassy ocean surface through the morning mist. Anthony's passion for surfing was exactly what you'd expect from a California marine biology student. He'd been surfing for 8 years. His friends described him as fearless, adventurous, but also deeply respectful of ocean life. He had infectious enthusiasm and a tendency to seek out remote breaks. His academic side was methodical, always researching surf spots and ocean conditions before paddling out. He'd spent weeks planning this solo dawn patrol session. This morning adventure was meant to be the perfect combination of his two passions, surfing and marine biology. The college student arrived at Surf Beach just as the sun was rising. He spent the first hour checking conditions and waxing his board at that remote location. But Anthony was restless, telling other early morning surfers that the real waves were beyond the crowded spots, despite the area being right next to a massive seal rookery at Point Conception. That fateful morning, Anthony set out early, carrying his 6'2" shortboard and minimal safety gear. He'd signed the beach access log, indicating he planned to surf the main break. But somewhere along the way, Anthony spotted what looked like perfect waves breaking further offshore. Despite the prominent warning signs about marine life in the area, Anthony paddled out about 150 yards from shore to position himself in the lineup. The area was beautiful, too beautiful to resist, with seals barking in the distance and crystal clear water revealing the sandy bottom below. While setting up for that perfect wave, Anthony suddenly noticed something that should have alarmed him. The water was unusually quiet, with no other surfers in sight, and the seals had stopped their constant chatter. But he was so focused on catching the wave of the day that Anthony ignored these warning signs. Finally, Anthony had positioned himself perfectly in the lineup and was sitting on his board, legs dangling in the water. Then suddenly, a terrifying silence fell over the ocean. Out of nowhere, there it was, a massive great white shark emerging from the depths, just 20 feet below where Anthony was sitting. What Anthony didn't realize was that he had entered the domain of one of nature's most efficient predators. Great whites are living fossils that have remained virtually unchanged for millions of years. Their torpedo-shaped bodies are perfectly designed for explosive attacks. These apex predators can detect blood from up to 500 yards away and sense the electrical impulses of a beating heart from several meters distance. When hunting, great whites approach from the depths in explosive bursts of speed, exceeding 35 miles per hour, using the element of surprise to deliver devastating attacks with bite forces reaching up to 4,000 pounds per square inch. Anthony reacted instantly, but there was nowhere to run. The massive predator struck from directly below, covering the distance between them in a split second. Anthony managed to see the shark's massive form just before impact. But the attack came with such explosive force that both he and his surfboard were launched into the air. The sound of Anthony's screams cut through the morning silence as the shark's jaws clamped down on his torso. He fought desperately, punching at the predator's snout as it held him in its powerful grip, the massive head shaking violently as razor-sharp teeth sliced through flesh and bone. The great white released Anthony after several seconds, typical behavior for these predators when encountering unfamiliar prey. But the damage was already catastrophic. Blood immediately began clouding the pristine water as Anthony, despite his severe injuries, began paddling frantically towards shore on his damaged board. The shark circled below, following the blood trail, but maintaining its distance, waiting to see if this strange prey would weaken enough to approach safely. Anthony managed to cover nearly half the distance to shore, his movements becoming weaker and more erratic as blood loss and shock overwhelmed his system. A jogger on the beach heard Anthony's desperate screams and immediately called for help. But the remote location meant rescue was still minutes away. By the time lifeguards arrived, Anthony had disappeared beneath the surface, the ocean swallowing him whole. 2 hours later, Anthony's mangled surfboard washed ashore, bearing the unmistakable crescent-shaped bite marks of a great white shark. The massive gouges told the story of an encounter with one of nature's most efficient predators. Anthony's body was never recovered despite extensive search efforts. The university established a memorial scholarship in his name, and Surf Beach was temporarily closed while marine biologists studied great white activity in the area. The attack led to enhanced warning systems and additional safety briefings for surfers. As the sun set over the California coastline, the memory of Anthony White served as a stark reminder. I've spent years studying the ocean's most fearsome predators, but one attack in particular still haunts me. It happened on the morning of September 3rd, 2015. The victim was a young charter captain named David Walter, and the attack took place in the murky waters of Galveston Bay, Texas. It was a brutal reminder of the ocean's unforgiving power. David was only 26, a first-generation immigrant who embodied the American dream. He'd built his charter business from the ground up, and his clients loved him for his infectious enthusiasm and uncanny ability to find fish. Friends remember him as methodical and safety-conscious, always double-checking his equipment. But he also had an almost obsessive desire to give his customers the perfect fishing experience. That day, he was taking 4 tourists from Dallas out for a bachelor party, promising them action near the Galveston jetties. The morning had been a success. They'd spent hours pulling in red snapper and speckled trout. David then navigated to his favorite spot, about a mile offshore, where the depth dropped to 25 feet. The tourists were having the time of their lives, already talking about booking another trip. But as they prepared to move, disaster struck. The boat's engine coughed, sputtered, and died. They were drifting in the strong Gulf current, heading straight for the busy shipping channel. David quickly diagnosed the problem: a clogged fuel filter. A simple fix, he thought. But as he worked, the boat's anchor began dragging. The situation was quickly becoming dangerous. Local charter captains had warned about unusual activity in the area, but such warnings were common in Texas waters. The water was murky from recent storms, making it hard to see what might be lurking beneath the surface. David had fished these waters for years without incident, so he reasoned it would be safe enough, with other boats nearby. His clients were growing nervous, so David made a fateful decision. He stripped down and dove overboard to manually reset the anchor, hoping to stabilize their position while he fixed the engine. He didn't know he was entering the hunting grounds of one of the Gulf's most dangerous predators, the bull shark. Bull sharks are among the ocean's most adaptable killers. They're comfortable in both saltwater and freshwater, thanks to specialized kidneys that regulate salt levels in their blood. This allows them to swim far up rivers and into freshwater lakes, where other sharks can't survive. They can appear almost anywhere there's water, from the open ocean to golf course ponds, miles inland. Their aggressive temperament and willingness to investigate anything in their territory makes them responsible for more unprovoked attacks on humans than any other species, except great whites. They have a bite force of 1,050 lbs per square inch and electroreceptors that can detect electrical fields from several meters away. Bull sharks employ a relentless bite and release pattern, striking multiple times with the tenacity of a pit bull until their prey stops moving. David was underwater, struggling to free the stuck anchor. The current was stronger than expected, and the anchor was wedged in debris. A 7-foot bull shark had been patrolling the fishing grounds for hours, drawn by the chum slick created by David's successful charter. Its incredibly acute sensors detected the electrical fields generated by David's rapidly beating heart, and the scent of blood from hundreds of yards away. What happened next occurred with shocking speed. David never saw the shark coming through the murky water. It struck from behind, its massive jaws clamping down on his leg with crushing force, before immediately releasing and circling for another attack. The impact was so violent that David's clients heard his muffled scream through the water. David fought desperately to reach the surface, but the bull shark continued its relentless assault. True to their species' aggressive nature, the predator struck again and again, each bite tearing away more flesh. The shark's persistence was terrifying. Once committed to an attack, bull sharks rarely give up, continuing until their prey stops moving. The multiple attacks created a feeding frenzy mentality, and the murky water became a churning mass of blood and violence. David's clients watched in horror as the water around their boat turned red. They screamed for help and radioed the Coast Guard, but David had already disappeared beneath the surface. Overwhelmed by the bull shark's relentless assault, the Coast Guard arrived nearly an hour later, finding only David's torn shorts floating in blood-stained water. The bull shark had vanished into the murky depths, leaving behind only traumatic memories for 4 witnesses. There's a story they tell in every boating safety course along the Texas coast. A cautionary tale about the Gulf's bull sharks that hunt in murky shallows. It's a story about how death can strike without warning. But thousands of miles away, in the crystal clear waters of Hawaii, another predator was about to demonstrate why it's earned the most terrifying nickname in the ocean. This time, the attack would happen under cover of darkness, where even paradise becomes a hunting ground for nature's most indiscriminate killer. The evening of April 22nd, 2016, brought perfect conditions to the remote coastline near Hana, Maui. A gentle trade wind rustled through the palm trees as the sun painted the sky in brilliant tropical colors. Christian Smith, 24, couldn't have asked for better conditions for his solo fishing adventure at one of his secret spots along Maui's untouched coastline. Christian embodied the laid-back Hawaiian lifestyle that drew so many to the islands. With his easy smile and encyclopedic knowledge of hidden fishing spots, he had become a local favorite at the surf shop where he worked. Local Hawaiian fishermen had warned about increased predator activity during night hours, but Christian had fished these waters countless times. What he didn't know was that the remote location had become a hunting ground for one of the ocean's most dangerous predators. As Christian tried to assess his injury in the dim light, he realized the cut was deeper than expected. His splashing and the metallic scent of blood created the perfect storm of stimuli that trigger a predator's hunting instincts. Unknown to Christian, he had attracted the attention of Hawaii's apex predator. Tiger sharks are perfectly adapted for nighttime hunting in both shallow and deep waters, earning the nickname wastebasket of the sea, because they'll eat virtually anything. Their stomachs have contained license plates, tires, and even other sharks. These massive sharks can grow up to 18 feet long and possess an indiscriminate appetite that makes them particularly deadly during nighttime hours when they move into shallow water to hunt. Tiger sharks can detect blood from several hundred yards away, and their lateral line system senses the slightest vibrations in the water, making escape nearly impossible once they lock onto a target. Christian began wading toward shore, but his movements became increasingly erratic as blood loss affected his coordination. The coral cut was more serious than he'd thought, and the metallic scent drifting through the water was like ringing a dinner bell for every predator in the area. The 10-foot tiger shark had been patrolling the reef edge when Christian's blood trail reached its sensitive nostrils. Unlike more cautious reef sharks, tiger sharks are known for their bold, reckless approach to anything in their territory, especially during nighttime hunting hours when they become most active. Christian never saw death coming through the dark water. The attack was sudden and devastating. The tiger shark struck from the side, its massive jaws clamping down on his injured leg with crushing force. The impact knocked Christian off his feet, sending him tumbling in the deeper water. The predator's attack was relentless and indiscriminate. Tiger sharks are known for their tenacious grip, often holding prey while using their muscular bodies to roll and tear. The shark maintained its grip while striking with its powerful tail, creating a whirlpool of violence. What makes tiger shark attacks particularly horrific is their feeding behavior. Once they taste blood, they enter a feeding frenzy, biting repeatedly until prey stops moving. Christian fought desperately, but the predator's grip was unbreakable, and each movement only intensified the attack. I've always been struck by how the ocean, which gives so much, can also take everything away in an instant. Christian, a surfer in Hawaii, knew that joy intimately. But one day, his screams echoed unheard across a remote beach as a tiger shark attacked, its indiscriminate appetite leaving no chance of escape. When morning came, only his truck and fishing gear remained. Christian had vanished. A massive search followed, involving helicopters and hundreds of volunteers. 4 days later, they found his body on a beach 8 miles away. The Hawaiian community honored him with a traditional blessing, and his surf shop colleagues established a memorial fund for ocean safety education. But the ocean's dangers aren't confined to Hawaii. On November 8, 2017, under crisp autumn skies in Fort Ross, Northern California, a similar tragedy was about to unfold. Here, the same species that claimed Anthony White, and tiger sharks with their nighttime hunts, were about to demonstrate that even seasoned professionals aren't safe from the ocean's most intelligent and adaptable predators. Ryan Walsh, a 29-year-old commercial abalone diver, couldn't have asked for better diving weather that day. Calm seas and good visibility promised a profitable harvest of the prized mollusks. He was a man who embodied the risks of his profession. His weathered hands and sun-worn face told the story of 6 years spent in frigid Pacific waters, free diving to depths that would terrify most recreational divers. Friends knew him as methodical and safety-conscious, yet driven by a relentless pursuit of the perfect abalone beds hidden in the rocky depths. That morning, Ryan launched his small boat with his dive partner Marcus, a younger man who looked up to Ryan as a mentor. They had worked together for 3 seasons, developing the unspoken understanding that comes from sharing danger in one of California's most hazardous occupations. Ryan chose a productive rocky reef in 25 feet of water, a challenging location with strong currents, kelp forests, and the ever-present threat of entanglement in abandoned fishing nets. As he suited up in his thick wetsuit, he felt that familiar mix of excitement and apprehension. The water temperature was a bone-chilling 55 degrees, but Ryan had grown accustomed to it over years of expo. His dive bag held the tools of his trade, an abalone iron, a measuring gauge, and a collection bag. The first few dives went perfectly. Ryan descended through the kelp canopy to the rocky bottom, where clusters of red abalone clung like living jewels. With his experienced eye, he identified legal specimens, and with practiced hands, he pried them loose with surgical precision. But on his 7th dive, disaster struck. While working to free a particularly large abalone, Ryan's fin became entangled in abandoned fishing nets. Marcus, watching from 300 yards away, immediately recognized that something was wrong. Ryan floated motionless at the surface, clearly in distress. Marcus started the engine and raced toward his partner, but the distance seemed impossibly far. A 13-foot great white had been patrolling the kelp beds when it detected Ryan's emergency ascent. The shark's acute senses picked up the electrical impulses from his rapidly beating heart, the scent of abalone in his collection bag, and the erratic movements of a creature in distress, all triggers that activated its predatory instincts. Ryan never saw the attack coming. The great white struck from below with devastating force, its massive jaws clamping down on his torso, with a bite force reaching 4,000 pounds per square inch, slicing through his wetsuit and into vital organs. The shark's initial bite was exploratory, typical great white behavior with unfamiliar prey, but the damage was already catastrophic. The predator released Ryan and circled back, following the blood. I'll never forget reading about Ryan. He was an abalone diver, and his death sent shockwaves through California's small diving community. A great white got him. He fought to reach his partner, but strength rapidly faded from blood loss. Ryan's partner, Marcus, pulled him from the water, but it was too late. Despite heroic first aid efforts, Ryan died from massive blood loss 20 minutes after the attack. Alex and dive buddy Carlos headed to a productive reef in 30 ft of water, where bait fish schools attracted larger predatory species. Water was exceptionally clear with 80-foot visibility, perfect for spotting and stalking quarries. For 2 hours, Alex had moderate success, with smaller fish contributing to his score. But as the morning progressed, he became focused on finding a trophy fish for top prizes. When he spotted a massive cobia cruising the reef edge, Alex knew he'd found his target. The cobia was magnificent, easily 50 LEBs and worth maximum tournament points. Alex hyperventilated to extend bottom time, then dove to intercept the fish's path. His shot was perfect, striking just behind the gills. But the wounded fish immediately took off for deeper water. In excitement over such a prize specimen, Alex became separated from Carlos and other divers, finding himself alone in an isolated reef section. The wounded cobia's struggle created a significant blood trail as Alex fought to control the powerful fish. When Alex finally surfaced with his prize, he was bleeding from cuts caused by sharp fins and exhausted from the underwater battle. The combination of fish blood and human blood, along with continued struggles of the dying cobia, created perfect stimuli, triggering predatory instincts of every shark in the vicinity. What Alex didn't realize was that he had attracted one of Florida's most dangerous predators, the bull shark.